Greetings everybody, this is Serpentine451 here, introducing a new segment that I talked about on Monday on Weeb Warriors. I know it's a day late, I apologize, I was pretty much tired yesterday, I slept a lot, and I had to make sure that I paid for things that I needed to take care of in my personal life, so here we are here and now. Anyway, let's get into the first new series for my channel called Aniosyncracy. Basically, this show will be about me talking about the idiosyncrasies in anime that I watch. That I tend to notice every now and then, the hidden meanings and symbolism used in anime that Japan, for some reason, likes using in certain works. And I chose the comedy Nanbaka, which is supposed to be comedically a prison break anime. Well, the way I can describe it's like if it's prison break, but funny, and all the characters are idiots. Hence the name Nanbaka. It's a portmanteau of the prison in the show, Nanba Prison, and the characters being idiots or baka. But here's the thing that I want to point out, and these videos in the series might be relatively short, due to the things that I might notice are very small and few and far between. It can range from being like 5-minute videos to maybe about 10 to 15-minute videos. It all depends on how much information you can really find within a lot of these shows. In Nanbaka's case, they like using a lot of Japanese folklore, a lot of Japanese and Chinese folklore, on top of other bits of funny information, like random folktales here and there, not as much as another show that I'll cover on this series, but I'll get into that when I talk about that show in next week's episode of Aniosyncracy. But I mainly want to focus on Nanbaka here. Nanbaka, for the most part, actually likes using a lot of motifs from Japanese folklore and also a little bit from Chinese folklore too. The three different prison supervisors that Hajime interacts with as his co-workers are modeled after the pheasant, the dog, and the monkey from the story of Momotaro. And also, Momoko, who is the warden and one of the few female characters of the show, is modeled after Momotaro, which is very interesting. And you have a lot of characters like the two that are part of the medical staff in the prison and their daughter Kaguya, which are a reference to the story of Kaguya, which is very interesting and fun. Also, there's a former prison guard that's modeled after the yokai, or Japanese monster, the kappa. And then you have Simon, who is the monkey, prison supervisor. I think he's the supervisor of cell block 4. No, I think it's 5. I don't really remember. The show may be fresh in my mind, but some things I just don't remember right away. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that his older brother could either be the first sage that could be interpreted as Son Goku, because their surname is Goku, which is the Japanese name for Sun Wukong, aka the Monkey King in Journey to the West. And also a lot of Simon's older brother has a lot of Sun Wukong's tendencies, just like like Simon himself, who Simon may be a little bit like Sun Wukong in a lot of ways, but he mostly relates to the monkey in the story of Momotaro. But you have a sage that's a new hire prison guard that models out himself after Suazong, who is the Buddhist monk that's the central protagonist in Journey to the West. Then you have a lot of the prison inmates themselves, kind of in a way, although Upa mostly represents, the cell blocks that Upa, Liang, and Chi are mostly focused on kind of Chinese archetypes, mostly dealing with kung fu and medicine. And also, Upa has a talisman on his face, mostly alluding to Jiangxi, which are Chinese vampires. Even though he doesn't carry a whole bunch of weapons on him. And also the focus of Qi is primarily indicative of their Chinese aesthetic within these sets of characters. And also, a lot of the things that you tend to notice, that Japan, when it comes to comedy, they have a lot of slapstick humor, and also sometimes a lot of out of the, balls to the wall humor that most fans of comedy really tend to just somewhat either gravitate towards or really dislike. It could be offensive to a lot of people. When Japan does jokes centering around cross-dressing or men engaging in wearing makeup or whatnot, I think it's not supposed to be indicative of anything that's supposed to be homophobic or inherently mean-spirited. It's just for the sake of comedy. And I know I'm going to probably get a lot of flack for saying stuff like that, but the Pheasant, prison supervisor, is a very flamboyantly dressed man, but he doesn't show any homosexual tendencies. It just shows him as a character that just likes to wear makeup and dress fabulously. The Kappa character, the former prison guard who is a prisoner technically, he also shares a lot of these qualities with the Pheasant. In fact, these two characters really hate each other and think they can one-up themselves. The Pheasant is the supervisor of Cell Block 3, and his two prisoners, also from Cell 3, they're basically individuals that are pretty boys. So the Bishonen archetype is prevalent in this. And our protagonist, Cell 13 and Cell Block 13, who's under the supervision of Hajime, they show a lot of interesting qualities too, like Una, who is from Great Britain and goes to Nanbaka prison. He basically is one of those gambler archetypes that thinks he's hotter than shit. And when he's up against pretty boys or people or characters that are prettier than him, he actively gets jealous. And also, Nico, who is another character in this particular cell block, and one of our central protagonists in our story, has a lot of otaku mannerisms and really loves anime and manga, which also he's an American, so it's adding a lot of the Western otaku culture implements into there, and how Uno, Rock, and Nico, from being from the West, they have a lot of misconceptions of what Japanese culture actually is, and the only Japanese character amongst the four principals, Jugo, doesn't really act like a typical Japanese person since he's been in prison his entire life, and how it inadvertently shows how prison culture can warp a person's mindset or mentality, and the only things that they can do are basically designated into prison, which shows a lot of interesting things. Even though this show is meant to be a comedy, it goes into a lot of darker, more serious plots that you would think, like, hey, this is supposed to be a comedy anime. What the hell am I getting this for? Why am I getting all this serious stuff? Yeah, just elements and themes of experimentation, manipulating the human body on prisoners, since they are the scourges of society, and they're easy test subjects, which researchers and all this stuff and all like-minded individuals have done in the past. Hell, the entire nation of Australia is basically founded on the backs of prisoners sent down there by the British government at that time, which is very interesting. So that's some stuff that I kind of noticed, and which alludes to other things within just this one show. Now, next week's episode, mostly next Tuesday's episode of Aniosyncracy, mostly will focus on Okami-san and her 7 companions and how they utilize fables and fairy tales to retell scratch that. How Okami-san and her 7 companions basically retells fables and story elements from fables and fairy tales in the more unique setting and in a high school setting as well. So, join me next time with that episode in mind. This has been Serpent451 saying to you, if you notice anything in a particular anime or show that you watch, why don't you tell me in the comment section below? Yet again, this is Serpent451 saying, I found all the idiosyncrasies in Nanbaka, and that's all I have to go with there.